Hello and welcome. We are so glad that you're joining us today. With me, I have Christy Smith, Danielle Hauser, and Laura Nunez, and I am Caitlin Morris. Let's go ahead and start by introducing ourselves. Let's start with Christy, and then Danielle and Laura in that order.
Hi, I am Christy Smith. I am a masterbooks moderator and a homeschool mom of four girls, but I am down to my last one. So this is our 15th year homeschooling and now just my ninth grader.
Hi, I'm Danielle Hauser. I'm also one of the moderators in the app. This is my ninth year homeschooling. I have 7 kids, and 5 of those I'm actually homeschooling, and I have a tag along preschooler and an almost 2-year-old who mixes things up for us.
Hi, I'm Laura Nunez. I am one of the moderators here for Masterbooks. I am mom to a 6-year-old little first grade boy, and he's my only child.
That's so wonderful. Thank you all for being here. And I am Caitlin Morris. I am a Masterbooks coach in the Moms of Masterbooks Facebook group and in the Masterbooks app. And I have always homeschooled from the beginning. I have 4 children, boy, girl, boy, lots of boy. And they are right now in between 4th through 10th grade. So we're in those upper level years. So let's get started with our first question. Let's go around in the same order and have everyone share their favorite thing about math lessons for living education and maybe a little something about your child's favorite.
I think for us, I actually asked my daughter this question. For us, I think it was 2 things. First, the story. She absolutely loved the story, following it through each level. And she liked when we got to level 6 and the academy course had come out. She loved hearing the stories read to her and loved using the Masterbooks Academy class along with math lessons. One of my favorite things was the way math lessons speaks directly to the student. And that was how we came into math lessons with a little bit of friction, a lot of hard things. So when we came from another curriculum and when we came to math lessons, and my daughter was able to read the lesson and work through and kind of take me out of the picture and really just sit there with her book. I was always there for help. That was such a big deal. And I did not understand how that would work because being a former classroom teacher, I thought every math course needed to come with a thick binder and I needed to teach it. Of course, my child would never be able to do math without me. So that was one of my favorite things that she could read. I have all daughters, so I'll say she a lot. She could read the lesson and understand it and come to me overjoyed that she did her math lesson without tears and a battle, and she understood. So that was a huge deal, the way it is written right to the student and understandable.
I think for us, I would like to echo what Christy said, and that I'm also a classroom teacher. I taught math, that we had to do all these problems, practice every single day, and it had to be like just, I don't know, super lengthy in order for my kids to actually grasp the concepts. And so one of my favorite things about math lessons is that it doesn't have to be that way. And it took me a while to get to that point to feel confident in that the process would actually work that way. And also coming from having teaching 5 kids at the same time math, the fact I don't have to sit down with each one of them and do a long lesson for each one, I'd never be able to do it. It's already hard enough as it is. And so I'm just thankful that they can sit down and just do the lesson on their own, but then I can step in and help them when they need it. And it doesn't take a long time. I also like the hands-on approach as well because it builds a lot of memories for us as a family. There's a lot of things that we just remember because of math, and those memories are really important to us. And I think that would be what my kids also love the most about math lessons, is that we get to do things like bake cookies. And the younger siblings are like, when do I get to bake cookies? When do I get to make this? Because they're excited about it. So seeing my kids excited about doing math or making posters and things like that, it really makes a difference for us. And I have asked my kids what their favorite thing is, especially my older two, because they came from a different math program. Why do you like master books better than what we were doing? And one of the things, they just like that it's colorful and bright and that it's not overwhelming to them. They don't feel like they're sitting at the table for a really long time. Even the level 6 is, it is more work than you would expect from level 2 and level 3 and so on. And so it is more of a jump for them, preparing them for those middle school and high school courses. But even that wasn't taking a really long time compared to what it could have if we stayed with whatever else we were doing. So I think for them, they just love being able to be involved doing other things. They like to be able to make the posters and do presentations that makes them feel a sense of pride over their work, that look what I did and I want to share it with everybody else. So they really like those projects, and they really like that it's not overwhelming, and they really like the bright, colorful aspect of math lessons.
So for me, it would be the mastery approach with a spiral twist. I just like starting every week knowing we will be introduced to a brand new concept. It will be worked on Monday through Friday, and then the spiral in there takes them back with a couple problems each day towards review of previous lessons. So for me, it gives me peace of mind that, he is still retaining information from his previous levels, yet at the same time, he's introduced to new concepts, in a gentle way, not overwhelming. Now, I did ask my son what he thought about math lessons and why he enjoyed it, like his favorite part. And it came down to essentially the same thing, but he gave a different reason for it. So his reason was that he doesn't get bored just on one specific topic each day. So for him, I actually tried a little workbook that was not master books, and we realized that pure mastery was not for him. It was boring him. So I think math lessons is a perfect balance between, mixing in the new with the old, and that's what he likes, and it works well for him.
That is so wonderful. I really love hearing what the kids have to say, because isn't it their opinion that matters? Because they are the ones that are actually doing these lessons. And sometimes it's easy as moms to get into the space of choosing curriculum for them without always considering what it might be like to be a student that's using it. So it's really encouraging to hear not only what you like about it as mom, but also what your student likes about it, because we want the material to connect with our students most, and that ultimately produces a really great outcome. And that makes us get that feeling that we're doing well, and that's a really good feeling. So, on busy days, what would math look like for you ladies? If you get a little bit busy and you don't have quite as much time to devote as you would like for math lessons, what might a busy day look like for you in comparison to a normal day? Let's go in the same order again.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to say I'm a little bit removed from math lessons because we're in high school now. But my youngest has gone all the way through math lessons. And being the youngest, a busy day was often helping her older sisters with their algebra and maybe their geometry, or running to instrumental lessons and sports practices. And I liked that math did not take so long. The curriculum we came from could easily be an hour. And that's if you're in good brain and you're working diligently through the problems. So the moment you get busy, and if my daughter would hear any type of tenseness in my voice, like, let's go, come on, you got to get math done now, we got to go, she shuts down, because she needs that deep breath where she can just think and relax and, take her time. So math lessons didn't take a long time. So it wasn't something that was a burden in our day. It was rather enjoyable. And if for some reason our math got pushed off for the day, it wasn't overwhelming the next day to do two lessons or to somehow fit that missed lesson in the week, whether we were working ahead, knowing we were going to have a busy day the next day, or if we just missed it because sometimes our day goes off the trail, off the rails there, and we might just not get to math. But it was okay because we knew we could come back to it. We could pick right up where we left off. And yeah, it's not overwhelming. If it takes 15, 20 minutes, that was wonderful.
So for us, I have to admit that when the first couple of years of teaching, that I really had a hard time not doing everything or not doing it exactly the way that it was supposed to be done according to the schedule. It took me a while to get out of that mentality that things have to be done because it says to be done today. So it took me a little while to get there, but now I feel like we're all in a much better place. And one of the things that we do, we'll split lessons up if we have to. So, for example, if there is a day that just has maybe a project with it, maybe they'll do the actual work today, and then tomorrow we'll do the project. Or we've done projects on the weekend if we had to, because maybe it was like baking cookies, and that's a fun thing to do together as a family. So it doesn't have to be like school on a Saturday. It was let's make cookies together on a Saturday, and we'll kind of sneak in those fractions as we're doing it. And so we've done that a lot. And it also is nice too because it gets daddy involved too. He really enjoys doing those things with the kids as well. So it's not always a bad thing to do some things on a Saturday, because if it includes family time together, and that's what we'll do, and that's what we need to do sometimes. I've also broken free of having to do day one on Monday, day two on Tuesday, day three on Wednesday, and so forth. That took me a little while to get to that point. And some days we have 4-day weeks for school, whether that's because of a holiday or whatever. And so I would always try to cram in, like, well, we have to do all 5 days in 4 days. I don't do that anymore. I allow myself the freedom and my kids the freedom to be okay with doing day 3 on Monday and day 4 on Tuesday, and we'll get there. We'll catch up eventually, and that's okay. And just encouraging yourself that it doesn't have to be exactly as written. If you have a sick day, you have a family thing that you're doing, it's okay to not do the days on the actual days. So it might take you a little while to get there too. It did for me, but it's so much more freeing to let's just do whatever day's next in the book on whatever day it is. And so that's kind of how we do it. And if we need to push things, and sometimes I let my kids switch days. Like, it's going to be a busy day today, let's just switch it, and we'll do day 4 tomorrow and day 5 today, and that's okay too. And that was actually their idea. They asked me before, like, hey, since we're going here, can I do this day today and then that day tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, let's maybe put a sticky tab though to remember you have to go back and do that so we don't skip it all together. But yeah, we'll switch days if we have to, and that really works for us as well. And if we need to do that, and sometimes, especially in the lower levels like level 2 and 3, sometimes my kids will be motivated to cram 2 days together because they know what's coming the next day, because it really isn't too much work and too much overload for them to do 2 days together. So we vary it a lot depending on the situation and the age, and whatever it is that's going on, we'll do any of those ways to make it work for busy days for us.
That's really excellent advice. I love the idea of switching up the days, especially in those levels where they have their entire multiplication chart to fill out. That is overwhelming to my students at times. And I love that idea of doing maybe half of it, or saving that bigger project for a different day. So that's really great advice. And the curriculum really does lend itself to that level of flexibility. So Laura, what does a normal day of math lessons look like in your homeschool, and how do you make adaptations if you're a little short on time?
So honestly, math is pretty much our go-to subject for busy days. It just works out well for us. But to elaborate on what Danielle said, we too do end up switching days, especially on those busier days. You don't have to stick. You can maybe do a Wednesday lesson on a Monday. It's okay to move things around. And this is where that spiral twist that I mentioned comes in handy, because maybe if you are busy and you're about to go into a new concept or something and you don't have the time that day, you can very easily pull up a lesson that has more review in it. And this is where the way that math lessons is written to the student, they can independently go ahead and do their work. A typical day for us, I mean, it varies depending on the lesson. If a new concept is being introduced and I'm taking the time to actually teach it, we could spend up to maybe 30 minutes. But if it's more of a review, or my son already knows a bit of the material, it can end up looking up to 10 minutes only. It's really wonderful the way that it's written to the student. I can just go over it with him and leave him independently and then come back and check on him.
That's really wonderful. I love hearing all of the ideas that everyone has shared to adapt the material. And it really does encourage a lot of moms to hear that you're not stuck in a box. You're not stuck and tied to the schedule. Life happens, and this curriculum is so adaptable, and that's why it works so well. So Danielle, how does the story in math lessons work with your children? Does it connect with them, or do you find yourself adapting it a little bit along the way?
Well, they just enjoy reading the stories, and the one, I think it's level 6, and I don't want to do a spoiler, but there were some difficult situations that were happening in that time, and so it does connect with us, and that way we talk about it because we're going through some difficult times in our life as well right now, and so they can relate to the kids at that level, and we've talked about that sometimes, and something that they really like, I think that Christy mentioned earlier, is that for levels 4 and up, they can have the academy to actually listen to the videos. And that helps them because sometimes it's hard for me to stay on top of the stories with them, especially if we're all doing a story, 5 different stories on Monday. It can get a little overwhelming. So I'm not always able to read that with them or alongside them. So the academy videos really help with that. And they like listening to that as well. It just gives them a different perspective to hear someone else reading it instead of me. And then it also holds them accountable so they're not skipping the stories because they just want to hurry up and hurry along as well. So that works for us.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Yes, so the storyline is involved in the levels of math lessons, and it follows along with a family and their adventures and what they learn together, not only in math, but also in life. And that is where you see the biblical and faith concepts taught. So, Laura, how do you find yourself using the stories or adapting the stories or gaining the main concepts of math from the stories as you utilize math lessons?
So for my son, who has different needs, so what I end up doing, because okay, um, so when it comes to the story, I take the time to look over it myself. I did have to do modifications just for my son's learning style. So I take the time to look over it. I kind of see how they're applying the concept to real life. I get some ideas myself, and then when I teach my son the lesson, um, I bring that in. So, like, let's say they're introducing fractions and the concept is baking. So, I take that into account, I bring that in, and then I try to think of my own examples and teach it to him that way. So, I kind of scan through the story, pick out what I think would be best to teach him the lesson, adapt it to him, and we go that way. So I know it's
That's
a little
wonderful.
different, but sometimes we need to do modifications for our students' needs.
Absolutely. We know that one size does not fit all, and it's so important to have the confidence as a homeschool educator to adapt all materials to work for the specific needs of your student. And that's really one of the blessings of homeschooling, that we get to know our students so well, know what would maybe be a friction point for them, or which activity or which thing would put them over the edge or possibly bore them, overwhelm them, whatever those things can be. We know our students, who are our children, so well that we can take this material and apply it to help them be successful. And that's a great feeling. And what I've heard shared so far is that it has taken all of us time to learn to grow in that confidence, to make those adaptations. And it's a process that I know I'm still on, even in those upper levels. When I mean, all levels are important, but I think as I've gotten to those upper levels with my older students, I feel a level of pressure to do more or to make sure that it's heavy enough. And I still need that reminder to make adaptations that are appropriate for the student while still getting the right level of work done. So, Christy, you are in those upper levels now. How did level 6, that transition level of math lessons, kind of help your student transition to upper level when it comes to maybe the middle school math years? How was level 6 helpful for your student?
Well, I think, first of all, as Danielle said, the lessons pick up in intensity and in the length of time. So they're going to have a little bit more problems on each lesson. The type is going to be a little bit smaller, so it's not quite as large. And I'm holding my sixth grade book here just to remind myself. And as they start learning how to apply themselves more, and the more diligence, they have to be a little bit more motivated to sit and actually work through. It feels a little bit more like a math program that is preparing them and looking forward to what's coming next. We felt like for all three of my girls, level 6 prepared them so well going into principles of math or going into the middle school math and then into high school. In fact, math lessons for my youngest was her favorite. And she was not really excited that she came to the end of level 6 and was, voicing that to me that, Mom, I just don't know what I'm going to do. This is my favorite. But I liked that Math 6 had upped the game and it had caused her to work harder and caused her to put some more time and some more thinking. The concepts are taught so well so that when we did move on to the next level, 2 weeks into principles of math, for her to come and say, I can do this. It's working. And in fact, I like it just as much, if not more. And that blew me away. But that just speaks to how well she was prepared. So it wasn't that the transition was so hard that we had to pause everything. And if you do have to, it's okay too. But we felt so prepared that we could go right into the next level. And almost it seemed like a review, but yet it's taking it again to the next level. But taking it to that next level is not such a big jump that you feel overwhelmed or you feel like math has changed. It's just not possible to do it anymore. So Math 6, really does a good job at that. I think the other thing is that Math 6 hits some of those harder concepts that we all know we learned at some time, but we might not remember, especially as moms. The fractions, the decimals, the percents, coupons, and discounts, and the way it's taught, again, just really was assuring to me. And if my daughter did have a question, well, if the book is speaking directly to my daughter and she's confused, then guess what? I can read the same lesson. I don't have to go to a separate teacher guide and try to read through the lesson and see how I first need to understand it to then teach it to her. I can go right to the book and read the lesson for myself, read her page with her. And it's just very well done.
That is so helpful. Yes, that transition from the sixth grade level into the next level, even outside of math, it's just such a big move for that age group. They're really learning and growing, and it can be difficult to take on that extra workload. There can be some resistance to growing up. And so, Danielle, I've heard that your oldest has kind of gone through that a little bit. Did you notice any changes in maybe growing in independence maybe note-taking skills or any study habits that began to develop as that Math 6 was being completed and going through as you transitioned to middle school?
Yeah, that's something that we're still working on with him, as we're just trying to figure out that his needs are different than, I don't know whether they're growing needs for him as he's going into middle school, or needs that have been there always, but this were masked a little bit, but as his hormones are changing, are just being amplified right now. Because in every area we're really struggling just with focus and things like that. So we've noticed with him that he needs to have the least amount of distraction as possible. And that sometimes means allowing him to skip certain things that might cause him to lose focus quicker. So sometimes he does have to skip a story for now because it's just too much right now, because by the time he's done reading that story, he's like, hey, and wanting to go somewhere else and do something else at that time. So I've just noticed that we're all working on that together with him. It's not something that, I mean, I guess I saw it coming, but it didn't become such a big problem until he started hitting 12 and 13 years old. And it's like, whoa. And I even looked it up, and that can definitely be a hormonal thing just as he's trying to figure that out. And I'm trying to figure that out with him. So just allowing him to be able to eliminate distractions around him and in his workspace, and also even trying to use a notebook, like the little graph paper, the grid paper notebooks, to do his work so he can line things up, because otherwise his work is just all over the place. And I have a hard time helping him because I'm like, where is, he's like, I did that work. I'm like, I don't see it anywhere. And then it's like hidden in some corner somewhere. So just allowing him to have more space than what the book is providing, so that way he doesn't have those distractions as much, and trying to figure out, because for him, just any little thing that can throw him off focus will cause him to get into that bad brain mentality. And now he doesn't want to do this anymore, and now we have these friction points for both him and for me. And so just allowing our kids, when we see these, what is really the problem here? It's not, he's actually decent at math, so it's not like math is the problem. What is it that we need to work on? Is it allowing him more space to work out his problems? Is it allowing him to maybe read the story at an off time, or listen to the story on the academy when he's not doing math, maybe, and just allowing him to I need to do math right now, and it's only math, and it's only these problems at this moment in time. And so that's something that I'm trying to help him with, and just kind of think through with him, because he's like my next daughter, she's now starting through level 6 herself, and she can focus more, and it's not a big problem for her. So she writes really tiny and really neatly, and everything is lined up so nice, and so she can get through it, and it's not a problem. So just recognizing when our kids are having trouble, I think, is really important, and trying to help them figure out what helps them the best, so that they don't get frustrated with math, because that was something that I had growing up. And so the reason why I decided to teach math was because I didn't want students to get into that bad brain and have that such dislike for math, because it doesn't have to be that way. And now that I have my own middle schooler, I'm having to remember to allow that for him too, just like I did when I was teaching, and trying to work through that with them. And it's always a growing process, because one year will look so different than the next, depending on our student and what their needs are. And especially as they're going through their own changes emotionally and physically and all of that, that also might mean that they need to make changes academically and how they do things to help them succeed better. And so I feel like level 6 was that point for him where we're like, okay, we need to start to make some changes. Let's give you your own space. Let's give you a new notebook. Let's get these things. We don't have to get rid of everything. Let's just help you figure out what helps you learn best. And so that's what we're still working through. And some things are working and some things aren't. And we're just trying to figure that out for him.
That's such great advice. I know whenever my husband works on a home project or something with our vehicles, he always says he would rather purchase the tool and own the tool so he can use it into the future rather than to borrow someone else's. And I was always resistant to that, because I thought, well, that's kind of a big investment. But getting the right tools for the right job really is essential. And he was right. We've used those same tools that we invested in time and time again. And over the course of time, they do make a really big difference. In that scenario, they do save money. But in the area of math, they really do make such a difference in the success of our student and how well we are doing at noticing their needs and giving them the right tools. So I love hearing that you are seeing your student and making the right adaptations for him so that he can have the greatest success possible at the stage that he's in now. I know for my middle kids, they are just one school grade apart. So I just had one student leave Math 6, and now we're back in it again. And it was a boy and girl. And just the difference between these two kids, only 1 year apart, has been just crazy. What one has struggled with, the other has not. And their personalities come out and how they answer things. And it's just been really interesting to see how one student handled the quiz versus the other student. Same with the reviews. Sometimes they do really well. Sometimes it shows in the review section a need to go back and revisit a concept. And so I love how all of that meshes together, especially in those upper levels of math, level 4, 5, 6. We get to realize that we're building a firm foundation that's going to launch them into those middle school years. And I love the foundation that math lessons provides to students. But we do know, as you mentioned, that not every student always has a successful, just the best day ever. I don't know if my kids ever wake up just totally ready for school. That would be weird if they did, at least in our house. And so some students do struggle with layers of feeling overwhelmed or like a resistance to doing their math, or they might feel anxious. They might have this weight on them that they feel that maybe they're behind and they kind of know it. So Christy, would you maybe share a little bit about that, if that's something you've experienced or maybe worked with a student on, and helping them to use math lessons to overcome some of those feelings?
Actually, that is my second daughter. We were with another curriculum, and math was getting worse and worse every year. Come fifth grade, we had hour battles, hour long, multiple hour long, lots of tears. And I just had to ask the Lord, lead me to something else. And when I stumbled across, or when He led me to math lessons online, I figured it looked so good and it looked exactly like what I needed. But again, the former teacher in me was questioning, how can a math book speak directly to a student? How can I not have a teacher's manual? But and this daughter was very vocal with how much she disapproved of math and how much it was a subject that she shouldn't even have to learn. And it was pushed to the end of the day. We tried it in all different hours of the day, and it just was not good. And that actually, she shared that with our pastor, just how much she did not like math, and that was causing her to dislike school. So when we switched to math lessons, it really was just a fresh breath of air coming into our school. And for her to just take the book and open it up again, getting her out of that bad brain track that she was stuck in, a different course, a different book, for the math to speak directly to her. And she was overwhelmed because now this math was a subject that I sat with her and helped her through every lesson. I had to teach her every lesson. And it was still such a bumpy road. It was not good. So for me now to give her the book and of course walk her through it and introduce her to it and show it to her and explain it to her. But then for me to step aside, almost to her was like, wait a minute, where are you going? How can I do this? But the way it's written to the student, explaining each concept, little by little, bite by bite. And she could work out just the littlest thing. starting off with rounding here at the very beginning. So it's a review. So she knew all this, but we had to first tear down those walls of I can't, or it's too hard. I can't do it. I'm not good at math. I don't have common sense. So the word problems don't make sense to me. All of it. And little by little, just reading, here's new directions and a review on how to round. All of a sudden it clicked. So to hear it from Angela Odell, this new author, this new way of approaching math, we could start math almost like it was a whole new subject that, yes, she did have an understanding of, but now we're coming at it so differently, without the overwhelm, without the stress, trying to relearn how to come towards math without that bad brain. It just started to be such an encouraging subject. So I would have to include that she went back to her pastor after a couple of weeks in math lessons and said, "You won't believe this, but I like math now." And that he came to me and said, "What have you switched to? Because something is working really well in your home." And it was obvious. It was obvious to all of us. So yes, just sitting down with our child and rehearsing to them, it's not you. It's, yeah, the foundation might have some holes. And even if you have to go back a level, I can see now that that may have even been good for her to go back a level and again shore up that foundation a little bit better, because we still did face some of these struggles going into upper math that we still did have to, I didn't realize there were some cracks, there were some holes in that foundation. And it's usually not the math, it's not the algebra or the pre-algebra, it's usually going back to that foundation. So I can see now, looking back, it might have even been a good idea if I would have gone back to level 5, just to make it easy for her. So she could have flown through level 5 and built her confidence up. That would have maybe even been another tool, another way I could have handled math that would have helped her. But reminding them that you can do this, take your time, take a deep breath, let's go outside, let's try something else. Or maybe I'll just set a little handful of chocolate chips here, and chocolate's a wonderful motivator. And every time you finish a problem, you can go ahead and take one of those chocolate chips. Wow, that really was a good incentive. It wasn't a whole lot. They were the semi-sweet, so not too much chocolate even, or too much sugar even, but little things like that to reassure them that I can do this. And the curriculum itself was such an encouragement, removing me from the situation. And of course, I'm always there for help. As mom, we are kind of even peeking around the wall or stopping by the kitchen table. How's it going? And looking over the shoulder just to give a pat on the back or a little hug. But then for this daughter especially, letting her do it on her own and see that I really can.
Thank you so much for sharing about her journey. And I love that you shared such wonderful advice in case there's a mom out there that is finding their student in a similar situation, not knowing maybe how to handle those feelings or the reality of those feelings. And that advice is very encouraging and practical, that they could consider choosing a different level or just taking a little pause to regain a firm ground before just trying to continue to drive away at the academic side. Sometimes in homeschooling, we do have that opportunity to remember to connect with our kids first, make sure that they're doing well, just as a person, and to kind of retrain their brain on beliefs that they may have about themselves, and to do some work there before going straight into the academics. Because if we drive the academics too hard, but the child is not caught up, we're really going nowhere but backward.
And I think, too, don't be afraid. We have our creator we have our Savior who is so willing to walk beside us. He is right there with us. So to remind them and take that time to pray with them that, Lord, help me focus my mind on these math problems. Give my child, my son, my daughter the ability, and pray for your child, in front of your child, about math. That too. And we see that even in the stories, right? Where the family comes together around the word and in prayer. So to do that then with your child is again another way to calm those fears, calm those nerves and anxieties, and help them learn how to lean into the Lord, even for a subject like math that might be hard for some.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Laura, I know that you've shared that you have a twice exceptional son. Do you have advice that you would want to share with a family who has a gifted student, and maybe some of the ways that you use this math curriculum to support your son in his journey?
Okay, so for starters, I would say placement is key. So I'm going to go a little bit on the opposite here and say don't be afraid to place your child in the level that they need. So for us, that is actually 2 levels ahead than what my son is grade wise. So find whatever level your child needs, take the placement assessment, and start them there. Don't be afraid of that. Now, I was going to share a couple reasons why this curriculum actually works well for gifted students. And the first one being that the gentle introduction to concepts is actually very helpful for gifted students. Because, I mean, you're dealing with a younger child who is being introduced to higher concepts. And at the same time, you don't want to overwhelm them and you don't want to scare them either. So that gentle introduction is just the right amount of problems for them to, dip their toes in the water, you could say. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit afraid this year starting him on multiplication because I have a first grader, he's doing multiplication division level 3. But math lessons has helped us, and I'm pretty sure this would benefit any gifted or advanced student, has helped ease that tension. There's no overwhelm. And like I said, the gentle approach, I mean, he's doing well with it. Another thing that I like about math lessons for gifted students is oftentimes what I've noticed, and this is just through my personal experience as well, and just observing other curriculum and how people tend to teach to these types of students. For some reason, I notice they start getting too abstract when they start teaching math at a higher level. And I mean, I understand it to a point, but what I love about math lessons is that it ties it back to real world application. Because having been a gifted student myself in math as well, oftentimes I still find myself questioning, well, why did I learn this and how do I apply it? And that's something that I did not want for my son. And oftentimes it just gets overlooked for gifted children. And like I said, the stories and all the little examples and the projects in math lessons, they kind of make things a little more concrete, which is good because every time he's learning something, he's learning why and how to apply it to life. And that's something that I think always gets overlooked, specifically with these type of children.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's very encouraging to hear. And I know that there's a mom out there that is right now just saying, yes, that's me. That's my kid. So thank you so much for sharing about your experience. And I love that you really emphasized taking that readiness test to help students find the needed level to meet them where they are, because that's the place from which that they will ultimately thrive. So that's really wonderful. So Danielle, I was wondering how much you guys have used the Practice Makes Perfect workbooks with your students and what that might look like for you.
Yeah, we have used the Practice Makes Perfect. I've used them more as a supplement to go alongside everything that we're doing, or as extra practice when we have some breaks, like in the summer, because it really is nice that it's not really like a full day's worth of math if you were to take just one page of it. A lot of times it's maybe like half a page of what you would normally do, or like half the time of what you would normally do, just to kind of give them that extra practice. And I was actually just thinking about what Christy said, and how my older student, my 13-year-old, could actually benefit from going backwards a little bit, kind of alongside of what he's already doing, just to kind of fill in some of those gaps, and using practice makes perfect to do that, because it is more of a practice sort of a page. You could kind of do that alongside of what you're already doing to fill in some of those gaps, but not stop what they're doing already, if that makes sense. I also like the quizzes and the tests in there, because it just kind of gives me an idea of where they're at, and if they've been retaining what they're doing, and if we need to work on anything as well. So I use the quizzes and the tests within the practice makes perfect as well, just to kind of keep track of where they're at with things, and take a pause on what we're doing and see how are you doing. Because sometimes, even if it looks like they're doing well day to day, and maybe they're not missing any problems, that can be something that is a little misleading at times, because then maybe they're really remembering it for today, but then a couple of weeks down the road, they need some refreshing on what they already did. And so I really appreciate having those opportunities to do that within the practice makes perfect. And I actually bought the PDF versions, because I do have so many kids going through it that I can just print off what they need help with. And what I did over the summer is, my kids wanted to earn points over the summer, kind of like when you have a reading program. And I printed off those extra sheets, and like, if you can complete this many pages of math for the summer, we'll do a special kind of a treat, just so that it was like they're still doing some math, but it's not like schoolwork over the summer. And we disguised it as like, hey, we can get some ice cream once you've completed this many practice pages, or something like that. It's kind of a motivation for them to just keep up with their skills, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they're doing school still. So that's another way that we've used it as well, and as kind of summer practice, or like that bridge, so they don't forget over a couple of months what they're doing. But so yeah, we use it that way, and I think it would be great to also use for filling in the gaps where we might see that one of our students maybe missed something along the way.
So in math lessons, there are a lot of hands-on opportunities, whether that be cooking or baking, taking the manipulatives from the back of the book and maybe laminating them or putting them together. Or there's even some projects where you can be instructed to make your own manipulative. And it's really been cool to see how so many families use those differently. So my little encouragement is to not skip those things. And a little story about my youngest, he's currently in level 4 of math lessons. And he had an assignment where he needed to bake something so he could practice his fraction skills. And just life got chaotic, and I put it off and I put it off. And it was about 3 weeks, and he pretty much just stopped asking. And it was at that point that I realized I let him down. And I know, as a homeschool mom, there's so many things, especially if you have multiple kids, multiple places to be, and other, demands of life. It can just be so hard to find the time to make the manipulative or to do the experience or whatever the thing is. But I decided, once I knew, I kind of realized I wasn't making time for that thing that felt so big for me. Like, when am I going to find the time to do this? But to him, it felt big to him, but in a different way. To him, it felt important. And I knew that I needed to make him feel important. So I made sure to add those ingredients to my grocery pickup. I got those items, and I put it on the calendar like it was an important appointment that I needed to honor. And just like I would take them to the doctor or a music lesson, making the cake went on the schedule. And we honored that appointment. And of course, he lit up. It did what it was assigned to do. It taught him fractions. He had a great experience, and he grew in confidence. More than anything, it was a really good reminder to me, after all these years of homeschooling: make the cake, make the manipulative, do the experience. Those are the things that they truly remember more than they remember, the day to day of the worksheets. That work is important, but it leads up to and provides them the skill to do those experiences together, which is one of the things that makes math lessons a very rich program. So I was wondering, Laura, how do you approach some of those kinds of assignments that are a little more hands-on, or how you might incorporate manipulatives to help your student get the most out of math?
Okay, so I do like to incorporate some of those hands-on. So when it comes to like the baking lessons, we like to, well, I like to have him do them with dad. It's a nice way to bring his dad in, and it's a nice little thing that they do together. It's a way for both of them to have some bonding time, participate, and I don't know, it just makes them happy that dad's included in the lessons too. I consider them important because, like I said, I want him to see some real world application of the concepts. So that's a perfect way for that. Now, when it comes to manipulatives, since my son is gifted, it is a little bit more unique. So honestly, our manipulatives are more in the forms of his fingers. um, we also tend to draw lines. So instead of actually using hands on physical items, he's more of a visual. So if you draw out like lines or things and group them into groups, like for multiplication or division, that helps the concept come across better to him. But here's the thing, I know that that tends to be more for the gifted mind, because with that comes, abstract reasoning a little bit sooner. And I know that may not work for everyone, but for those kids, I mean, it is an important adaptation.
Yes, absolutely. I love hearing that you're continuing to find adaptations that work for your students. I also love that the manipulatives that are involved with math lessons are usually household items. They're inexpensive and they're easy to do. I think the issue that came upon myself in that cake story was more that I just got overwhelmed and thought that making that cake was just going to take so much time and effort that I blew it out of proportion when really it didn't. And so it's just very helpful, a very good reminder to make the time for those most important things, because they really do connect with our kids and they become very memorable and they help them solidify what they're learning. So, Christy, some families in homeschooling realize that their current program is no longer working and they need to make a mid-year switch, but they can feel a little bit unsure about how to do that. What would be your advice on making a mid-year switch in a program like math, which builds upon itself?
First of all, I tell our moms in our umbrella, if you need to switch, and if it's not working, pray about it and get the Lord's direction and guidance. To stick with a program for the rest of the year, that in itself to me sounds almost more overwhelming, because you know it's not working. And you have that feeling as a mom that this is just not, it's just not working. And I see my child going into the bad brain every time we even bring up the subject. It takes courage to change curriculum. It's not easy, especially if it's one that you have used for years and you know the table of contents, you know the scope and sequence, you know how the course works, and you're already overwhelmed. Well, maybe even math being hard is causing the overwhelm. So to look into a new program might feel even more overwhelming. But if you can change and if you can have that courage to order that new curriculum, to ask, go on the Masterbooks Facebook group, go on the Masterbooks app, and ask the moms that are there. There are so many wonderful moms that are willing to share their experience. And then take that placement test and start in, just take a day at a time. And if you want to start at the beginning of the book, like Caitlin said, it's a subject that builds on itself. And if you feel like you have holes in your foundation, if you wish to go back a level, it can feel overwhelming doing that too, because if my child is on level 5, and we would never go back to level 4, because they're gonna feel that I'm, maybe they're just not getting it, or they're not smart enough. But when you do really meet your child where they are, and you start to see that smile return, you start to see that confidence, as a mom, that's very encouraging. It's rewarding to see your child just starting to grow and enjoy learning, and that's what's the most important. If you do go back and they're able to move through a lower level quickly and develop their confidence, let them just go at their own pace. Do a week at a time, do 2 weeks. We see stories of moms who have that experience, and their child's just wakes up and comes to breakfast with their math book, and they're ready to just start working on page after page, and the excitement is starting to return. But again, mom, it does take courage, and it does take you making that step. Don't be afraid. um, Trust the Lord in it, ask for his wisdom, and try it, because I know in my home it was definitely worth it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Danielle, what is one thing that you wish parents knew before starting math lessons for a living education? And what encouragement would you give them to utilize this program based upon your experience?
I would just say that, like Christy said, I would pray about it before you even start, that your initial thoughts about it, maybe you're thinking it is too gentle, or you're used to doing something that's ultra rigorous with like the kill and drill pages or something like that, that you go into it with a fresh mind and a fresh perspective on it, because it is different than a lot of curriculums. But different doesn't mean it is bad. It's a very different in a good way. It's a way that supports your child and supports you as a family, and as a mom, as a teacher for your child. And so just because it might not be what you're used to growing up, or in my case what I was used to teaching, um, doesn't mean that it is something that should be just discarded, or something that you shouldn't even consider. So when you go to start math lessons, or if you're considering starting math lessons, just know that it's okay if you break down those walls in your mind, and pray that God will help you to see that this really could be, or really is, what your child needs, is something that you can grow with them, so that their math mindset, the good brain towards math, is that when they're all done, that they can say, you know what, I actually really did enjoy math. Maybe it won't be their favorite subject, but it also won't be something that they dreaded, and that they can be encouraged to use through their life as well. So I would say go for it. And but like Christy said, before you do, just pray. Pray for God to show you. Pray for your child who is going to be starting that book, that they can be encouraged by it, and that they can grow in their knowledge of math, but also that it can be something that they enjoy doing, not just by themselves, but that you can also make those memories with them. The math curriculum that we did before was no memories except for bad ones, because it was tears all of the time, and there weren't even any opportunities for memories. It was just sit down and do this, and then we'll be done. But I think that something that, at least for me and my family, that I wanted with homeschooling, is that I would have these memories that I would treasure with my kids one day. And obviously not every math day is an exciting day, and there are still the occasional tears, because it is hard or frustrating, or we're distracted, or we're not wanting to do math today because we just don't want to do math today. Just like us as parents, there are days I wake up and I don't want to do school today. I'm like, I just kind of am tired. It was a rough night, and I really don't want to sit down. So give our kids that grace too when we have when they have those days, because we all know we have those. At least I have those days where I'm just not motivated. And so I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I am saying that it does build those memories together, and we have far less of the bad memories than we did when we did another curriculum. And now we're actually making fun memories together and as a family. And we've even included grandparents in on presentation days. And hey, we couldn't get to these cookies, but we're going up to Pennsylvania, and Nanny can make these cookies with you. Or, hey, we have to do this sewing project and Mimi's really good at sewing and we can get her involved. What other math curriculum allows for those opportunities to expand beyond our immediate family and even reach out into extended family if we have that opportunity, or even bringing friends along to join us in the fiesta party in Math 5 or whatever the case may be. I haven't seen one that gives those opportunities. So look at the math lessons as an opportunity for your family to grow in friendships and in bonding together. And because it limits the amount of problems that you do every single day, it allows for those opportunities to flourish in your family. So that's what I would say. Pray about it. Break down those mindsets that the preconceptions that and misconceptions that you might have about math, and allow God to work in your family in that way.
That is so beautifully said. Thank you so much to share your not only your experience but your encouragement for moms, for homeschooling parents that are out there feeling that it's time to make a switch, but they're just not sure. But I think what you shared is going to give them the motivation to go ahead and make that change. I wanted to thank Christy, Danielle, and Laura for joining us today in this session. I really appreciate your wisdom and your experience and all that you've shared about math lessons for a living education. Thank you for being with us today.